Hi there, I'm Mike Clapper, and welcome to the Inclusioneer Lab, where we explore the fusion of universal design, guest experience, and innovation. Today, I am pleased to welcome my good friend, Marco Nijhof, and he's got decades of experience in hospitality, retail, and real estate. So, Marco, it is a pleasure to have you here with me today, and let's dive in.
Great. Good to be here. Absolutely look forward to this.
So why don't you just kind of tell our listeners a little bit about you? You've had quite a career. Let's just kind of start there, and we'll move on.
Well, I used to be an international hotelier. Now I'm saying I'm an international retailer. I've lived in about 24 countries all over the world, opened hotels all over the world in Asia, Middle East, in Europe, in even in Africa and in the Caribbean. So I worked all my life in five-star luxury hotels until about 10 years ago when somebody asked me, Marco, would you like to work in retail? And I said 10 years ago, retail, why do you want me to work in retail? I'm a hotelier. I don't know retail, etc. And to be very honest, Mike, it was the best decision I've made in order to change a bit of direction and move into the retail business because it's exciting. Business moves very, very fast and it's an exciting business. So that's what I am where I am and I live in Holland
Okay.
and at the moment, I'm in Greece, but I live in Holland and work all over the world.
Wow. Both of those places are on my list of like top 10 places
Look
to visit.
look
So
forward to welcome you, Mike, anytime.
great, great. So I know you're in retail now, but let's go back to kind of your roots in hospitality. What was it about hospitality that kind of excited you, and how'd you get into it?
Well, I got into it. I must say, most probably the real American way: start at the bottom and end up at the top. I started as a bellboy in a seaside resort when I was about 16, and when I was about 39, I became CEO of a hotel company, a senior vice president, and eventually CEO of a hotel company. And worked my way all the way to the top. Studied on the side, but the biggest reason why I joined hotel business because I want to deal with people. People. I think people is the most rewarding things you can do is see that people have a good time. And even now, as a senior professional, I do a lot of mentoring. So to see how you can have an effect on people in order for them to progress, or as a guest, to see that whatever you do, your service delivery has an effect on their well-being, has an effect on their happiness, an effect on the family, and that for me was a very important part why I joined hotel business in the first place.
Gotcha. That's fascinating. So then you shifted your career about 10 years ago, as you stated, to retail. What led to that?
A question of somebody asking me, "Would you like to join retail?" And my first answer there was, "Mike, retail, a hotelier? We wear black suit, gray suit, blue suit, white shirt, white shirt, white shirt, white shirt, and we have possibly a colorful tie, but that's about it." So I said, I didn't understand why they wanted me to join retail. Then my first question, of course, was, "Are you guys looking to develop hotels?" No, 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 we're not looking at, but we want somebody who has as a singular focus the guest. And when they told me that, I actually thought, that's interesting. And I've all my career, I've worked in hotel business, sat on the left side, the right side, the management side, the ownership side, the franchise side, corporate side. I've done everything in hotel business. So when this opportunity came to actually change the retail industry from a, what do I call it, from a transaction point of view to move it to an experience point of view, I said, I grabbed hold on it 10 years ago, and I can tell you now, Mike, I have the best job in the world. So it was a non-planned move. It was real opportunistic, and I didn't know it was going to succeed. 10 years later, still working for Scott Malcolm, our owner, and it's a fantastic business.
That's great. Can you kind of talk to me? You've mentioned experience design, which is something that here at the Inclusioneer Lab we talk about a lot. It's the guest experience and kind of designing that to meet your guests. Can you kind of talk about that and what you've learned in retail and maybe what you took from the hospitality world as you moved over to this new side of the business?
Actually, it's very interesting because I believe luxury is important for everybody. And luxury happens on a high level, on a medium level, on a small level. And it happens on different levels. And I always give the example of a hotel soap. You have in a
Mm,
five-star hotel, you have a wonderful big bar of soap that you can wash your hands in. And when you stay at a more budget hotel, you use a different part of your body in order to open a soap, your teeth. Yeah, and you open your teeth in order to get that piece of plastic off, and then finally you have a piece of soap that's about this big, and then you wash your hands. Why? That's not luxury. That is basically looking at transactions and making sure that people can wash their hands. I truly believe that from a luxury point of view, creating experience on a low level, on a medium level, or a high level, the principles are the same. It is about creating experiences where people say, wow, that's a memory. I will remember that. Versus coming into a one-star hotel and have a tiny bar of soap and have a little bit bigger bar of soap that actually smells nice, costs you possibly 2 cents more, not more. So
mhm.
luxury is an element that can be accessible to everybody else. And that is how I joined actually the retail business, because what I learned in the hotel business was that we have a singular focus on the guest in hotels. Yeah. And very early on in my career, when I was a bellboy, yes, where did my money come from? From the tip, Mike. That's where the money came from. Yeah. And up to you get to a manager level, then you don't get tip anymore, but your focus is still about the guest. Until my last job as a CEO of a hotel company, my singular focus was still on that guest. So whatever we designed, whatever we did, was about the guest. The same when I started to look at retail and what retailers were doing, they were focusing on transactions. I need to sell a sock, and if I can sell two socks and I sell two socks and a shirt, I've done a good job. And I didn't understand that because I said that's not what retail about. Retail is as well about an experience. So what I actually started to implement in the company here that I work for now was a matter of saying, guys, we have to start focusing on the guest experience, not the transaction. When you focus on the experience, the transaction will follow over and over and over again. So stop focusing on, I need to sell socks, and start focusing, how do I sell the sock? Where do I sell the sock? And that basically, Mike, comes a little bit to how you design the experiences. Yeah. And that's design element of experiences, I think is very, very important. And whether that is on a low level, a medium level, or high level, every level you set it at needs to become slightly aspirational, that people can afford it, but you can't afford it every day. It needs to be aspirational. Cruise liners do it now. Hotels do it now. Restaurant bars do it now. It's very much more the experience than the food. The experience than the food. The experience in a cruise ship is so important,
Mm.
where people are entertained for the whole day. And that element of designing of the experience, what I believe is that makes a difference for a good luxury company, or for any experienced companies. Because at the end of the day, people say, I'm in the real estate business. No, you're in the creation of experience. If that's a house, or that's a hotel, or that's a hostel, everything is built around that experience, right?
So this whole idea of guest experience gets thrown around a lot these days, right? Everyone's talking about experience these days. I feel like the more thought leadership I look at, the more articles I read, the more YouTube videos I view, everyone's talking about guest experience and transforming the guest experience. But it takes a lot to get people to buy into that. Can you kind of talk about how you were able to do that, especially in retail, where, like you said, it was so transactional, and also just a quick follow up: how do we make sure this actually happens? How does this actually transform beyond just talking points and things like that?
It's a very good question because at the end of the day, here I joined in this company, the Bistro Collection, where I worked and I started 10 years ago, and they see this guy coming in a suit and a tie, et cetera, where the retailers were just far more casual in it. And I started to talk about hospitality and talk about the guests. It took me 2 years, Mike. It took me 2 years in order to be able to change the attitude. And I still remember one of the speeches I made to the senior management team, about 150 people from all over the world that came over, and I had to explain to them hospitality. I did a fantastic presentation, blah, 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 blah. Felt very good about myself. And then what happens? One guy stood up and he says, listen, Marco is very nice, but we have 35 million people coming to our villages. He said,
Mm,
how do you make that difference to 35 million people? And I said, piece of cake, room quiet. I said, piece of cake. You know why? Because if you do it one at a time, you made a difference to one at a time. And if you and I do it one at a time, we've done two at a time. And if you have 3,500 people working for you and you all do it once at a time, you made 3,500 people happy on that day. Multiply that by 365, and I can get over, way over that 35 million or 40 million that we had right now. But what it did do was why in value retail or the Bistro Collection, they had tried hospitality before with retailers and
mm,
retailers. They never tried it with an hotelier who basically has a singular focus is the guest. That was the ultimate difference. They spent the money on me to say, okay, we want you to set it up. Then what they did, they created the budget around me in order to do that. And then they allowed me to hire the team in order to do that. And one of the, I wouldn't say the smartest thing, but one of the first people I hired in order to deliver the move from transaction to experiences for 35 million people across our 12 villages was I hired a person who ran airports.
mm,
And why did you hire somebody from airports? Because airports are dealing with 500,000 people a day. Their building blocks on how you build those experiences was far more important than we do in hotels, where hotels is relatively small. You have 400 rooms, 500 rooms. Okay, I ran one with 1,800 rooms. But what I realized by hiring this person, who's now my right hand man, he was to able to see what the vision was, able to break it down, and start putting the building blocks in place, step by step by step by step. And the first people I hired, for instance, when I started doing hospitality for the Bistro Collection, was I hired three doormen, Mike. And I
mm,
still remember the president coming to me and said, Marco, why are you hiring three doormen? I said, what are they going to do? He said, because we don't have a door. I said, we have gates where people walk into the gates. I said, absolutely.
mm,
I said, and these guys actually going to do nothing. He said, whoa, 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 whoa. You asked me to pay these guys to do nothing? Yes. I said, the only thing these gentlemen are going to do is tip their hats and say good morning and good afternoon. He says, why do you do that? There's no personality. You got to give a face to the business. You got to be able to connect. And that's as well what hotels I found where the new hotels are losing it. The GM got to be upfront. The GM has to be that person that walks around during lunch or dinner or cocktail hour and says, how are you doing? How's that? It's no longer happening, Mike. People are
mm.
scared because they sit after behind the Power BI report, seeing how we're doing, how we're performing, et cetera, and I think from an experienced business that we're in, that is so wrong. I give you another example of what we did at the Grand Hyatt Fukuoka in Japan when we opened that up. I said every guest has to be greeted by a senior director of the company. And he said, oh, it's impossible. How we're going to do that? I said, page. We didn't have mobile phones at the time. We have a paging system. And when the guest arrives, there's a button the reception pushed. 5 pages went off. The director of sales, Marco, his number two directors of F&B went off. Everybody stood up from the meeting. All five stood up. Guys, I got to go to the lobby to see a guest. In the meeting, in the middle of it, I got to go see a guest. Whoever was in the lobby first, the other four walked back. But what we did, we gave a business card. Ohio gozaimasu. Welcome. If there's anything I can help you with. And those were foreigners as well, talking to a Japanese. That was the element what you said. You were running, showing the example to your team by standing up out of a meeting to greet a guest that showed the commitment, the passion you had towards our guest. And that is something that I think for success to be implemented, you need a passionate individual who you entrust, who you give a budget to and people to in order to deliver that vision. And for me to create the traction, I can tell you, it took 2 years. But
Wow.
once that transaction is created, Mike, you get the snowball effect. You know, you get all of a sudden it just started to take off, and everybody wants to be where success is. So the moment you've proven that success, keep on rolling, and keep on reinforcing it. And we call it every month we do moments of kindness. Who are the
Mm,
people that got recognized in retail, where we have 32,000 people a day, 40,000 people a day in a village coming through? Where's that moment of kindness that you've seen, the picture that you've taken at the end of the month? We recognize those people not for being employee of the month, no, but by recognizing for a moment of kindness. I show you with a customer, with a guest, to show a moment of kindness. That's how you make a difference. But it takes time, Mike. It's not something that what you open a can, you put some water in, and you stir it, and all of a sudden it's done. Because these
mm.
are emotional experiences that you try to create.
Yeah, yeah, I can, totally see that, and it reminds me of my experience. You mentioned, cruising earlier, right? Cruise lines. Some cruise lines do so well at doing exactly what you just spoke about, which is catering to the guest, making them feel welcome, and then other times, other brands feel like you're kind of, you know, being
A
herded like
nuisance.
cattle
You're a
or
new and you're a nuisance
you're
to them for doing
yeah,
their job. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that's really
And
fascinating when
the
I think
funny
about
thing is because a cruise line, actually, they have the best captive audience in the world. The ship has left. There's nowhere you can go. There's nowhere you
yeah.
can go. So the capability to leave an impression with the cruise line business is huge. Same with an airline. The moment the door closes, you're there. Well, you
Yeah,
know what the service levels in airlines are about at the moment, and it's just it's there are very few airlines who still provide a real experience of that is a differentiating element and enhances the brand, because I think an experience enhances the brand. When it enhances the brand, you can actually charge more, and it becomes actually more profitable to provide better service.
100%. When you look at Virgin Voyages, for instance, in the cruise industry, they're some of the highest rates out there, but their customer service is just unreal. And so they can charge those prices, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
But
just fascinated.
they have a leader, and for instance, I he comes up on my social media, yeah, Richard Branson, all the time.
Right, right.
They have a leader who's passionate about the experience, who's out on front, even after so many years. He's still out there.
Yep.
That's the commitment you made to the guest experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Let's get back to, you've talked a lot about hospitality, but we've talked about the guest experience, but what role does design play in the guest experience? If you put your hospitality hat back on, and maybe it's in retail as well. Does the layout, the design of a property, what role does that play in the experience of a guest?
I think that design is a very important element of it. I think you need to be specific to the market you're catering for, the country, the region, etc., etc. And also, as a hotel, you have to understand what you want to be. Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's that I think the identity of hotel is not only decided upon by its colleagues and that are providing the service. It starts with the element of design, how that is done, and how many times do you come into a hotel where you cannot even open the closet because it fights with your bed, or how come you open a closet and it fights with the door of the toilet, or you come into a bathroom and you said, where's the bathroom, how's that in relation? There's just I found that from a design point of view, there's a lot of times a lot of common sense missing. And I think that element is very, very important when you just look at it. And I even the stupidity sometimes when you sit at the desk and you try to sit underneath the desk and you can't put your legs underneath the desk because they put the desk height right, but forgot to calculate that there's a drawer coming underneath, and because the drawer comes underneath, you can't put your legs underneath anymore. I'm Mike, you've seen it more than I do, yeah, in terms of design. And I think in that respect, that design element is becoming more and more important, especially nowadays that we go into these lifestyle hotels. Yeah.
Mm.
And I checked out of many lifestyle hotels because they think that a desk that is 2 meters long but 30 centimeters wide is a great design element. I can't work on it. I
Mhm.
couldn't even put my diary and my computer on it. Well, what is
Mhm.
and then you had the plug for anything that you want, and it has to be around the corner of the bathroom. You know that's where it is because that's where the bloody Hoover clicks in. Doesn't make sense. It's that thought process about design is not true. And you may find it, yes, in the five-star luxury hotels, you find it more. I also think, to be very honest, if the cruise lines try nowadays to do it better in terms of coming up with the design, it is, in my opinion, a differentiating element of a good experience and an average experience.
Yeah, we see that all the time uh, with disabled travelers. For instance, they could get all of the ADA requirements, right, in terms of the toilet height and the grab bars and all those kind of things, but we might not be able to close the door behind us to use the restroom,
Mm,
you know?
no, no,
Um,
very true, very true.
I was staying at a hotel recently where there literally wasn't enough space for me to get my chair next to the door to swing it open because they put in this wonderful accessible closet, but they use all of the space where somebody would use their chair to get out to put in this wonderful accessible closet. So
And that's what I think as well, is where nowadays there are specialists for things. There's specialists for F&B, there's specialists for spa, there's specialists, Mike, in your case as well, there's specialists for people like you. So
right.
why are these people not engaged? Because at the end of the day, I just don't understand the difference. I don't understand why people make that difference when you hire this one and this one and this one, but you don't hire this one. I think that is short-sighted.
Yeah, I think that, for folks like me that are trying to improve accessibility, a lot of times they just don't see the market, right? The fact that 1 in 4 people now have some kind of disability, and we've got the aging population that's only going to grow, right, as time progresses,
Yeah.
and it's $100 billion market just here in the U.S. I mean, I think they're seeing it as a compliance checkbox or something that they need to do rather than a business opportunity. But I could go on for days about that because that's what I do.
Yeah, but I also think, to be very honest, and when you then talk about the design element, that design will actually pay itself off in no
Mhm.
time because the moment you have a good experience, what do you do? What do you
Go
do?
back.
You talk to nine, yeah, but you also talk
Mhm.
to nine people that you had a good experience, correct?
Right.
That's what you do. That's what you do. It's automatic. So not doing it is actually, in my opinion, relatively short-sighted.
Yeah, I would agree. To kind of wrap up this design portion, you and I had an interesting conversation the other day when we were talking about capex expenditures and all those kind of things. And one of the things I hear as a consultant all the time is, "We'll get back to you when it's time to renovate our hotel." And I say, "Well, when is that?" And they say, "Oh, 2030."
Yeah, no,
You know,
it's
5 years from now, we can talk about accessibility with you. 5 years, but you had an interesting take on, capital expenditures and how, hotels might benefit from kinda changing their
actually,
their strategy
it's a
on
big
that.
learning I had from retail, and if I would go back into hotel business, I'm still involved in hotel business in California actually, but if I would go back, it's an element that I learned from having an owner who owns a retail company and who owns a hotel. Retail is very much every 6 to 8 weeks you got to redesign yourself because trends, winter, summer, autumn, it constantly changes. And if you don't change, you're out of business pretty soon. And I just always give the example of Kodak as a company who was
Mhm,
basically the front runner when it comes to Bollywood, and they totally missed the boat. They didn't change. It's the
mhm,
same with hotels that normally every 10 years we renovate hotels, we save our capital expenditure budget in order to fund that in 10 years to do a closed hotel and redo it, etc. We've taken a different approach in doing it in hotels. We're actually spending part of our capital expenditure every year on changing parts of the hotel. And why do we do that? It's actually a retail effect, because in retail we change our stores. Or sorry, the retailers in our villages change their stores every
mhm,
6 to 8 weeks in order to be attractive, in order to show new things. When people come for a repeat visit, they don't want to look. The store looks the same, different colors, and we're starting to do the same with our lobbies. We started to do the same with some of our identity in our suites. We kept on spending the money of our capital expenditures instead of waiting for 7 years or 10 years. We're actually starting to spend it. That means when people come back, they have something new to see in their experience when they enter that lobby or when they enter that restaurant or when they enter that rooftop bar. They actually see
mhm.
that it's constantly evolving. And that is what I think in our constantly evolving daily life, the one thing that is constant in our life today is change. It is
Yeah,
so fast. It is so fast. And why do hotels say we're not changing, we're changing every 7 years, or we're changing the menu every 3 months or 6 months, or we change the beverage list every 2 years and the wine list every 5 years, etc., and the carpet every 7 years? Makes no sense. It might now, actually, I say it makes no sense, because having learned from the retail business, you got to stay up to date on a constant basis with the clients you're catering for. That when they come back, there's another aha moment again, or another wow moment, or wow, I didn't know that. That wasn't there last time. Wow. Let's see when I come back next time, what is different then? That's the excitement where emotional memories are created. When people see that, understand that, they will come back because they're more inquisitive and I'd love to see how the hotel is evolving. And that is why I say don't spend your capital expenditure once a year or once every 10 years. Spend it on a continuous basis to keep your hotels up to date and looking fresh.
yeah, I think that's a huge tip for hoteliers out there, because like you said, everything's constantly changing, and if you don't
Mm,
evolve, you're gonna end up going extinct and missing a market like mine that is just sitting there waiting, to be touched, and right now we're not getting that kind of service or that kind of thoughtful design.
mm.
Um, I always say, empathy is not the problem, execution is, right? So, you
Well,
you
you need
talk
to
a
have the foundation of empathy. You need to have the foundation of empathy in order to make sure that change occurs. If you don't have
mhm.
empathy, then nothing is going to happen, Mike. It just you stay stale.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, um, for instance, I was stuck on a cruise ship a few years ago. Everyone cared, right? They gave me coffee, they gave us free drinks. What do we need? More free drinks? We've had free drinks the whole stay, right? Everyone cared, but the execution was the problem, right?
Mm,
How
yeah.
do we make sure you're a team leader, how do we make sure that we train our teams to think about all of these situations that might occur within a property or a retail store or whatever, village like yours? Um, Not just specific to folks with disabilities, but we're all different, right? We all might need different accommodations or different, things, along
Yeah,
our journey.
absolutely. And it's and I think as well, to be very honest, now with AI and the data that we can get, my God, you can almost tailor make the biggest thing that we're trying to tailor make our journeys for our private clienteling guests, okay? The high net worth individuals, the people that spend an X amount of money. That company that's able to do that and mass level, personalize your journey en masse for you, Mike, or for me, Marco.
Mhm.
That is where I think the future is, and it's not digital. The knowledge is gained digital. The
Mm,
execution is done physical. That's where
mhm,
the difference is. And I once said in a panel, it was a hotel panel, and they were talking about it was just after COVID, about how good they were on spending their IT budgets on coming up with everything that no contact had to be made. And I'm
mhm,
looking at all these people. I said, "Are you stupid?" I said, "We're coming out of COVID. People are contact hungry. They want
mm,
that contact with people, and everything you do is design the opposite." And we as a retail company, we went the other way because we said in COVID after 3 months, and was a brilliant move from our chairman, our owner, Scott Malcolm. We said after 3 months in COVID, COVID is resolved. And we all thought that man is crazy. He's cuckoo. I said, we don't know. We don't even know what it is. He says, we either find a vaccine or we learn how to live with it. So we are not going to focus on how to solve COVID. We're going to focus on when COVID is finished, how do we get out of it? And the man was
mhm,
absolutely right. And what we did was we kick started it. It's almost like a Formula One car. You know, you go in a
sure,
curve. When we do go into a curve, we brake, we go into the curve, we're out of the curve, and you give gas. A Formula One guy comes in the curve, he brakes, he's 25% into the curve, and already at 26%, he goes full gas in order to get his car out. That's what we tried to do with COVID. After 3 months, he said, let's not focus on COVID anymore, but let's focus on how we're going to get out of it. Brilliant move. And we indeed we saw double digit growth in our business doing that straight afterwards. So it is that element that I think a visionary element is important when you're in a experience business, is identify what's next, what is the next thing coming. And
mhm.
Scott was right at the time, 10 years ago. He says, I need to hire a hotelier in order to have a guest centric focus on our business. And he was absolutely right.
So, put on that visionary hat for just a moment. What do you see coming next in hospitality?
Two things I see happening. First of all, I think the utilization of AI, yeah, and everybody says that, but for me, it's very simple. I look at it differently. Here's the physical experience. Here's the digital experience. Where those two intertwine, that's where the soft spot is. It is not e-commerce. It's not physical. I think it's the physical journey supported by the digital that creates you a digital equals physical journey, because the digital you can't take out of the physical anymore. It is definitely ingrained within. So that's the first one, which is basically the digital meets the physical, and that's where the soft spot is to create experience going forward. The second thing that I think is where entertainment needs to come further into the retail experience. Now, I'm not saying that the Disney parade in a shopping center. No, that's not what it is about. But how can you use art? How can you use music? How can you use artists? And I still remember many years ago when I was opening this 1,800 room hotel, we knew we had at certain times 700 people waiting. That waiting element became a moment of contact for us with our guests, and we had before the opening, chefs on motorcycles trained. We had our bartenders were trained on juggling. We had a character people who trained, but they were staff. So what happened then when these 700 people were waiting? We called these guys out, guys, for half an hour, entertain these guests. And that's what happened. And there was a chef standing there, there was a bellman standing there. Everybody was trying to engage with these guests, create an experience that was not the normal experience, because we knew we had to bridge 20 minutes of waiting to get through these lines. That's where the element of entertainment, in my part, in my opinion, comes into play already in a retail experience as well. Because in a hotel is relatively easy to do, but in retail as well, we deal with luxury brands, and luxury brands have a lot of lines waiting. How can you
Mm,
deal with these lines? Is what we call queue management. And the queue management is not only about you in first, you can't wait, you have to wait. No, it's about how can you entertain the people? We give umbrellas, we give water. In winter, we give them hot coffee, we give them marshmallow. So what we try to do to create that experience again, where people go back and says, you know what? I waited for that brand, but I had a hot chocolate with marshmallow. It was great. People will talk about that. And that's how you create repeat guests and how you create memories, what people talk about. And in today's environment, will go on social media, and actually you get a brand extension by by consumer or by guest generated content. That's exactly what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my role models in life is Walt Disney. That's why I named this podcast the Inclusioneer Lab, because it's a takeoff of the Imagineers that he had working for him. That they're still there today, but they were really at their peak in the 60s and 70s and early 80s when they were opening, Disneyland and then Walt Disney World and all of these things. It's that same kind of idea. You could wait in a line for 2 hours for a ride, but you were constantly entertained and constantly having stimulation, I guess. I
Yeah.
recently read a
It was in
story
my
where
in my case as well, and I believe very much in Disney. I believe in their principles, and I was running a very large hotel company in the Middle East, and I had all my executive teams of all the hotels in the Middle East attend. Instead of going to Disney and then attend Disney University, I did the reverse. I asked Disney University to come to us
Mm,
and actually teach our senior executive team, general managers, executive assistant managers, food and beverage directors. They were ingrained into the Disney experience because what I say is, well, the moment you enter that doorstep, the moment you enter, you're on stage. You're on
yes.
stage. It's a show, and you have a requirement. That you don't like to be on a show, don't join hotel business. Don't do it. Yeah, stay out of it. As simple as that. But it's really, I think Disney, in my opinion as well, is a he was a visionary, and I still think what they're trying to do with all their theme parks and all their experience that they try to create, they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Um, so let's talk inclusionary for a minute. I talk about my 3 core principles with not just the Inclusion Your Lab, but with my business Able to Global are design that elevates and guest experience, and then innovation and systems at scale. So I know that's where I come from with the kind of disability hat on, but if you were to put that hat on for just a minute, can you give me, a few ways that you think that hoteliers could, take some of these lessons we've talked about so far in our conversation and apply it to guests with disabilities?
Well, first of all, I don't think you need to design specifically for disabilities. Sorry, I don't believe in that. I believe you need to design for what is right and what creates a differentiation amongst everybody else. Right? What you then need to do, you need to hire the specialist to help you amend that design or adjust that design for people like yourself, Mike. Yeah.
Sure.
That is
Yeah.
what needs to happen because you still want that experience, whether you're, sorry, I'm going to say, whether you are disabled or not, or you're handicapped or you're limited mobility, you still want that experience. So that experience has nothing to do, zero to do, zero with a person being handicapped, limited mobility, or whatever it is. Zero. Because the aspiration is there, but it's how you design that aspiration, amend that aspiration to fit for a person like yourself. That's where the difference comes in. And that's what a lot of hoteliers possibly, or cruise lines possibly, I don't know enough about the cruise line business, possibly miss out because they don't get that experience involved. They actually say, no, 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 I know it myself. So basically
Mhm.
by knowing it myself, I can just tweak it because I just follow the rules and regulations. Well, it's not just about the rules and regulations are the minimum requirements. That aspirational stuff is still out there. Why aren't you trying to tailor make that aspirational stuff for the different segments of your market. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, one of the things we're doing at Able to Global is we're running a research study where we're looking at hundreds of thousands of reviews across the world from hotels all over the world, from low end to high end, to see what their top 3 pain points are.
Mm,
And as this data is coming back and we're still getting more data, I was stunned to see that whether you are a disabled traveler or you're just an average traveler, the same pain points keep coming up over and over again. We all have the same pain points. So to your point, if we design for everybody, if we engineer experiences for everybody, if we use that technology right, to make things more personal, uh, we can do amazing things because let's be honest, there's room for improvement for everybody, not just a subsect of the population. So
But the
that's really
fact, the principle is, and I agree with you, the principle is that aspirational experience.
mm,
That's what you need to focus on, not
mhm,
that experience for that handicapped person or for that limited mobility person. No, 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 no. Focus on what you want to establish as an experience and adjust it to make sure that it's available for that market, and that market, and that market. Now, if you don't want to do that, that's a business decision you can make. That's fine. That's fine.
mhm,
But if you do want to cater to all these things, then you have to, yeah, you have to be smarter at it a little bit, Mike, in my opinion, and use the specialists or use the people that know this business. I always say, I know what I don't know. I know what I don't know.
mhm,
And the moment
mhm.
you have that principle, you go find out who's that person that does know, because I don't know. And in hotel business, and say to myself, I always call myself, we are Mr. Fix It. We're Mr. Know It All in the hotel business. But actually, it's not the case. We need to know what we don't know.
Yeah, it's, those are words to live by.
I
I think
know
we'll
it's easier said than done, Mike. It really is, because you have a financial obligation towards your owners or to your investors, etc. So it's always slightly difficult.
yeah, but there's money to be made with these
Yeah, yeah.
improvements
No,
and
no,
with
no. I agree.
that
I
you
totally agree. Totally agree with
and
you.
that is
Yeah,
that is something that I'm bringing to the masses because this is not just a compliance play, it's an ROI play, it's a loyalty play, it's a guest satisfaction play, it's all of these things. So,
yeah. No, I
you
agree. I agree.
I think we'll leave it right there because you kinda, like, had the mic drop moment. Know what you don't know. I think that's
Yeah,
a
know
great
what you
thing
don't know. Yeah, absolutely,
from this
absolutely.
this conversation. So, thanks everyone for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure, Marco, to have you. Uh, I just want to remind everyone to subscribe to this channel. We've got a lot of great interviews coming out in the next couple of weeks here. More people like Marco with tons of experience, interesting viewpoints. So subscribe to the channel, like this video, and if you're interested in talking to someone that can help you grow your business and unleash $100 billion market, there's a link in the description to my website. Hit me up there and let's talk. So until next time, this is the Inclusioneer Lab. Thank you very much.